Sit. It's kind of an interesting place to sit, isn't it, Hope? This is Hope, and this is Hope's roadmap to success. Now, Hope, I had a couple of issues, basically. I believe she has a resource guarding problem, and she thought that she had more authority than her humans, and so she can correct them. So a lot of that, well, we'll reward that, sit. Basically, a lot of that is she had no rules. She was able to tell her guardians when to pet her, and it's okay if Hope's not in the shot for this part. I just like to start off. She gets to tell humans what to do. So, I mean, just like if you had a job and your boss told you there's no rules and you tell me when to pay you and there's no consequences, you're probably not going to be the employee of the month or be motivated to listen. She didn't really have any motivation to listen to her guardian. So to help redirect her in case she does get into one of those modes, and I'll talk about the warning signs in a second, if you see these warning signs I'm going to talk about, then you would maybe call her away and do the focus exercise that I just got done showing the guardian off camera. Now, warning signs would be staring, often with a lowered head, licking of the lips, turning the head to the side and yawning. Baring the teeth is pretty obvious. Growling, and the guardian here was not happy when the dog growled, but we never want to correct a dog for growling because that's the dog's communication. I'm not comfortable with what's going on. If we correct the dog for growling, a lot of times they will just start going straight to a bite. So we don't want to do that. And we want to recognize if the dog is growling, look at it. Is there something that might be spooking the dog? If so, let's handle the situation for the dog so it doesn't think it has to handle it for ourselves. So so let me see, other warning signs. The hair on the back around the shoulders and on the butt will stand up along the spine. Also, their ears rotate forward often. If they start moving very slowly, that can be a warning. Now, for resource guarding, the dog is going to have a downward nose orientation and it's going if anybody comes near, so if you see the dog like that or get that feeling in your gut, we want to follow the instructions in the video above. We want to move away, and then walk back and toss a treat at the dog, and then walk away again, and we want to do that all sorts of different angles. So there might have been, it was on a trailer outside, and it might have been the dog, the person moved or got too close to the dog might have had a bone. I don't know, I didn't see it, so I can't say. And it ripped the shirt. Didn't cause any blood or damage to him, but the dog did bite her guardian in the hand. And we definitely don't want that. You're not supposed to bite the hand that feeds you. So because of that, I'd like the guardian actually for a week the guardian that was bit to start feeding her by hand. Literally. Pull out a piece and let her a little bit out of your hand, pull a little bit more. Dogs will never bite the hand that's feeding them. And we want to help her practice because that eating is the most primarily important activity for dogs. So if they have to eat the food out of the guardian's hand, that helps the guardian as the provider of food. Now, I went through other ways to add structure to mealtime. It's important the guardian eats first. And let me see. We went through some rules and how to enforce them. Some of the rules would be not being allowed in the furniture for 30 days, not being allowed, having to sit before we let it in or out of a door. And remember, sit and say sit once, count to 3. If they don't sit, don't say it multiple times. Just walk away for 1 minute, next time for 2 minutes, then 4 minutes, and 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time. And as soon as you go over there and they sit within that 3-second window after you tell them, don't ask them, then open that door like there's remote control in their butt. Eventually do it in both directions. Also, not being allowed in the kitchen when we're eating food, not being allowed in the kitchen because it's a kitchen dining room, or being allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food. Now, I showed the guardian how to teach a dog to leave rooms, and I'd like each person in the family to do that with her once a day for every room in the house, so she has practice leaving the room. Most of the time when dogs misbehave, it's because we haven't taught them how to do it. So teaching the dog to leave the room is really easy with the method I went over, and after a while, the dog gleefully leaves the room because it knows it's going to get a reward for doing so. Also do warm-ups. So before we actually cook anything in the kitchen, we're going to microwave a piece of bacon and practice the exercise I just showed the guardian how to claim the area around the kitchen door. Same thing with eating. If you go hang out down there you can go ahead and come up. That's all right. This is an amateur video, so it's not that big a deal. You watch yourself. Okay, Mom says no. Hey, Hope. Now, for some dogs, if they bark like that, we're all dogs, we bark at them, they're like, oh, now we're both barking, cool. So, but for some dogs, if you just say, thank you, I was like, finally, I've been telling everybody, somebody's outside, nobody's listening to me, somebody's outside. So just try doing that. If that works, great. And then take her away and practice that focus exercise. Anytime she gets out of order, take her away from whatever it is she's reactive to, wait for her to settle down, and the focus exercise is a great way to get her to settle down. Okay, so now you know the warning signs to look for. Now, if she starts moving slow, that's a big warning. So if she moves slow around somebody, she might give them a warning. So tell the person to stop or move away in a measured way. Tell them not to run because that creates a chase. Other rules we went over, let me see. Well, not necessarily, if for a dog, whoever goes out in front is perceived to be the leader. So if we let her run up and down the stairs ahead of us, or go into the room or outside ahead of us, then that tells her that she is in charge. So maybe if we're going to go upstairs, we say stay, then I walk up the stairs and then give her the release out of her stay, and then ask her to come. Now the guardian taught her to stay, but there might be some hang-ups from the way she described it. So if you want to teach your dog how to stay the way I do it, message me, I can share you a video on how to teach your dog to stay. But teaching your dog to stay before you go up the stairs and calling her helps her practice that behavior, and eventually she'll stop and wait for you to go. Now if you're not going through the door first, just make her sit and then let her out. You don't have to go through the door yourself. But also on walks, it's important she walks next to you, not in front of you. Now we have a puppy class where we teach loose leash training, but we really try to keep that for dogs that are under a year. We're going to eventually doing group classes, but if you want to hire us for a 1-hour training session just to work on loose leash training, it's important the dog walks next to you and not in front of you, because then they perceive themselves to be more of an authority figure. Sit. That's passive training. I'm going to talk about passive training and petting with a purpose. And my mom's birthday is today. I got to meet her for dinner, so I'm going to talk very fast. So passive training is waiting for the dog to do something it wants to do, you want it to do, on its own organically, without any influence. She came over and sat down. I didn't ask her to. I didn't lure her to. But within 3 seconds of her doing that, I petted her. Remember, you have 3 seconds to correct or reward the dog for them to have the ability to make the connection, but it has to be repeated a number of times in a row. Consistency is very important as well. So every time that she come, I didn't ask her to come. Sit. I didn't ask her to sit. So I'm just rewarding the things that I want, and after a while the dog will start offering those on its own. That's passive training. You can teach your dog to do anything. Every time he brings you a certain toy, say angel, or cake, or hamburger, or whatever the toys are, and eventually you can name all of them, and she has to go get, no, I said get the hamburger, not the ham sandwich, or whatever it is. Let me see. So, I taught my dog to stretch this way. I taught one of my dogs to grumble this way. It's a great habit to get into, and I use the word testify, sit. If the dog did something and I missed it, the other person in the room says testify, look at the dog, and whatever the dog is doing. It's sitting, I'm going to pet it and say sit. If it's standing, I'm going to assume it came and just pet it and say come. If it lays down, pet it and say crash. I'd like the guardians also to make a list of the command words. Right now she only has really 3 or 4 commands. And come up with fun command words and make sure that everybody's using exclusively the command word. Not come here, over here, girl, dog's name. Just come, or whatever the official word is. Make up a list of the command words and put it down somewhere, and then say vocabulary if somebody's using the wrong version of the word. I also say testify for passive training. If the dog just came to me and I missed it, somebody says testify, I look at the dog, and if it's standing there, I pet it and say come. If it's sitting, I pet it and say sit, or whatever it's doing. Now if she nudges me, that's her telling me what to do. Now she's trying to get the treats in my hand, but a lot of times the dog sticks his nose under your arm or paws at you and wants attention. And we reach over and we pet it. Well, we're telling the dog it's okay to tell me what to do. I listen to you. You're the boss of me. That makes the dog think that it needs to protect you or can correct you when you tell it not to do something. So basically, for petting with a purpose is before I want to pet her, I'm going to use this hand motion, sit. I pet her under her chin and say the word sit only. When she puts her paw up there, I put my hand away. That's a way of dominating move. Sit. So this way I can get her to sit using that hand motion. Don't just go like this. A lot of people, I see people and they're like, that's not the motion. So I'll show you. Get her to go over there, just keep it on me. So I have nothing in my hand. I go to an arc over her head. As soon as she sits down, I lower it, let her lick it off my hand, then I tickle her under her chin. We're not always going to give her a treat. This way we have a lure. And if she's not coming to you, hold up your hand like this, and see how she's watching my hand? There's nothing in it. And watch, the lower you go, the more enticing it is for the dog. So the dog's not coming, hold your hand up like this and say come. She doesn't, and she looks at you, doesn't come, go. The lower you go, the more it's for the dog. When it gets to where you want, raise it over its head, put it on a sit, give it a treat and say sit, or just pet it under its chin and say the word sit. Also be careful with the pronunciation. Don't say sit, or good sit, or go sit, or things like that. Just sit. So that's passive training and petting with a purpose. The video above covers resource guarding, which is, I believe, what was going on for her. I also went over the escalating consequences, ways to disagree with unwanted actions and behaviors. Those should not be used if she is challenging you. If she is aggressive, just leave the area, especially if it's resource guarding. And also be mindful of her if she's outside for a long period of time. I think she might have been overheated, and her guardian came to that conclusion as well. When some of these things have happened, might have been with her there. Now, if she is rolling around the shrubs instead, what we would do is, and then start lowering her hand, and always get the dog to move away and come to you. That's a good rule of thumb, is always getting the dog to come to you, as opposed, if I go to ask a girl out, the girl's in the driver's seat. I'm the vulnerable one. If a girl comes to ask me out, I'm still waiting for that, but if a girl comes and asks me out, then I'm in the driver's seat, and I'm the confident one. So always try to get the dog to come to you as opposed to you going to the dog. Now, those directional commands that I showed you, how to teach the dog to come and leave the room, those are great ways to help the dog leave voluntarily. But whenever the dog has a behavior problem and doesn't know what to do, ask yourself, have I taught the dog how to behave in this situation? If you haven't, then you want to recreate the situation in a controlled environment and give the dog a couple of options, one of them, the most desirable one, being the one that you want. And don't lure the dog, don't motion the dog, just the dog can't do anything else, you wait, and as soon as it stumbles upon the thing you want, you pet it or you reward it and you say the command word. Remember, always say the command word after the treat goes in the mouth or after the affection starts. After a while, the dog stumbles across it a couple of times in a row, the dog starts figuring it out. This is what we did with the focus exercise. I refer to this as light switch on, light switch off. When the dog does the thing I want, I turn the light on and the dog gets attention. As soon as the dog starts doing something I don't want, puts its paw on me, I stop providing attention. I'm petting it, as soon as it jumps up at me, I stop paying attention. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. So if we come home and the dog's excited and jumps up and I pet it, I'm telling the dog jumping up on me is the way to get attention. So she's going to bring me a hamburger. She knows I'm actually going to go eat a hamburger here in a minute with my mom's. So don't pet when they're nervous or anxious or fearful or excited. Just pet with a purpose. And I use the word paycheck for petting with a purpose. So if somebody sees me petting the dog and she's standing, somebody says paycheck, I stop petting. I tell the dog to sit. When it sits, I pet it on its chin and say the word sit. Then I tell the person, she was sitting. I made her do that before you came in the room. When she saw you, she stood up and I continued petting her, which David said it's allowed, which it is. Okay, now we also want to take away temptation. If a dog is doing a misbehavior just like us, if I'm an alcoholic and I'm trying to stop drinking, my friends don't take me to bars while I'm in the process of quitting, or after I quit. That's a horrible place. So right in the front of the house, we're not going to show up. We're in a split level house, and the dog can sit on the couch and look outside the couch or outside down on the front yard. And that, I think, gives the dog the impression it's in a security guard mode. And also the higher dog sits, more rank or status they have, which is why we said no furniture for 30 days or as long as these problems are still going on. But you can still look at the side of the window. So what I would recommend the guardians do is go to like Kinko's or Office Max, measure it out, ask them for the roll of paper, 3 feet wide and whatever length you want, and have it cut specifically for each one. I would probably recommend putting it on the outside of the house so she can't scratch it down. But after a while, she keeps on going to look and monitor. Well, it's 3 feet. She's only a foot and a half high. She can't see out of it. Now, if she starts standing up and looking out, then you have to raise it. We call this a Roman blind, but eventually we take away that temptation because if I go to the window, I can't see what's going on outside anyways. So we don't want her to be a guard dog. Also, I would recommend you incorporate a dog bed in every room that you hang out in, so she has a place that she can go, her designated couch. If you want to figure out how to do that, just send me a message, send me a text message. I can share a video and show you how to do it. We ran out of time, so I was able to show it. But giving the dog a designated place to go and telling them stage or beach or whatever you call it, and making the dog go there on command is really helpful. You can redirect the dog's attention. Let me see. Make sure the guardian's eating something before she feeds. I think that's pretty much the highlights of what we went over. Make sure you don't walk around her, walk through her. Thank you. Drop. Well, actually, here, I'll show you how to teach your dog to drop real quick. Come here. So if she has something in her mouth, a lot of us, we want to pull it away. You gonna take it in your mouth? Get it. So she has it in her mouth. Drop. So when a dog has something in its mouth, let's come back to me, and I'm holding it in my mouth, not holding it here, but in my mouth exclusively. I take a treat, touch the dog's nose with it, and I wait for it to stop. Just stay out of room.
You got it.
That's all right, it's still going. Keep facing me. So basically, we just hold it in front of the dog's mouth. As soon as the dog, don't tell it to drop, don't take the thing away. As soon as the dog spits it out, pop the treat in the mouth and say the word drop. And then the dog gets the object again. So this is a great thing to teach the dog to do, especially with a dog with resource guarding issues, to make sure that if it takes the wrong thing, we don't want to try to take it away from the dog. That would make the dog want to do it more. Instead, we would just teach the dog to drop. Now, you did a very good job. I appreciate you not biting me. Your mom was very worried that you were going to bite me, but this is, when it's resource guarding in these situations, I don't come in with the baggage of the humans, and the resource guarding we're just cautious about. So let's see if we can finish this. Let's come up here. I've been auditioning for a TV show, and they say you always want to get the dog to face the camera, which is over there. Can you say hi to the camera? This is Hope, and this is Hope's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. Right, Hope?